Hello everyone, my name is Chetan and welcome to the very first session of our training program. Okay, so in today's module, we're going to talk about what is the difference between an interpreted versus compiled language. Then we'll also cover upon Java introduction, how do we install, how do we set up, then how do we download Eclipse package, and how do you write down the first program, right? So we're gonna learn that in today's class. Okay, so let's get started. So in the programming world, languages are of two type. Okay, the first type is interpreted. Okay, and the second type is compiled. Now, what is a difference between a interpreted and a compiled language? Okay, let's try and understand that. Okay, so for example, so even before going into those details, so if I take few names of interpreted language, so JavaScript is one of the most popular interpreted language. Okay, then you also have VB script. Whereas if I take few names of compiled language, Java is the most famous compiled language. Then C Sharp is another one. Okay, so these are compiled. There are a lot of compiled as well as interpreted language, but I'm just taking names of few of them. Okay. Now let's try and understand what is a difference between a compiled versus interpreted language. Okay. So let's say I have a program. Let's say I want to perform the addition of two numbers. So I have two variables where I'm holding values a equals to 10 and let's say b equals to 15. Okay, and then I want to perform the summation of a plus b, and then I will simply print it on console, right? So this is a very simple program I'm trying to perform through interpreted and compiled languages. So what is the difference? So let's understand that. Okay, so in case of a compiled language, so let me open paint, ms paint, just a second. Okay, so in case of a compiled language, what happens here is basically, so let me draw a diagram. Okay, so let's say this is my source code. Okay, right, source code as in the language specific code, right? Then in case of a compiled language, this code, source code, gets converted into something called as compiled code. Okay, and then this compiled code is converted or rather executed on your machine. So in this case, so the plain English language code is converted into a compiled code, also known as intermediate code, right? So this is my intermediate code, right? Also known as compile code. Okay, or byte code or binary code as well, right? And then it gets executed on your machine, right? So if you see whatever program you have written, it's written in the source code, in plain English language. It doesn't matter which language it is, whether it's a Java or C Sharp. Then it gets converted into an intermediate code, also known as compiled code, byte code, or a binary code, and then it is executed on a machine, right? So if you see here, as the plain English language is converted into intermediate format and then executed on a machine, that's the reason these languages are faster in performance. Okay, so whereas if I try to execute the same source code using an interpreted language, okay, so in that case what happens here is the plain English language code, okay, gets straight away executed on your machine basically with using a component called as interpreted, right? So of course the plain English language, since the plain English language is straight away executed on the machine, the the task of an interpreter is little difficult, right? Because it has to read the plain English language code and then execute it on your machine. So that's the reason these languages are little slow in performance. Okay, right. Now the language or yeah, the language which we're gonna learn in this training program is Java basically, right? So Java is a compiled language, right? Meaning whatever code we write down in Java, we call it as a source code, okay? And we write down that code with .java extension, right? Then it gets converted into something called as bytecode, okay? The extension of this will be dot class, okay? And then it gets executed on your machine basically, right? This is the process what you're gonna follow in Java, right? Now now it's that we have understood that Java is a compiled language. We write down the code in we write down .java class, then it gets converted into a bytecode, and then it is executed in a machine. But of course, if you see this first level of conversion and then the second level of action, right? There must be something who is doing this in the background, right? And what are those two components? So the first level of source to bytecode conversion is done by something called as Java C, that is Java compiler basically, right? And so for Java compiler, the input is your .java file, and then it converts that into a .class file. Whereas there's someone who is reading this bytecode and executing it on a machine. And who is that? So that is nothing but your JVM, Java Virtual Machine, basically, right? So these are the two components, Java C and JVM, who is doing the conversion plus execution for a Java program, basically, right? Understood so far, right? So now, who is giving us these two components? Of course, if I want to write down a simple program in Java, so I need this Java C and JVM, right? So who is going to provide us this? So for that matter, we download something called as JDK, Java Develop Development Kit, right? Now, how do I download this JDK? Or where do I get this JDK? Okay, so in case if I want to use JDK, or in case if I want to write down some programs in Office, how do I write down? Okay, of course I need the software to write down the Java programs, right? And that software is being provided by JDK, Java Development Kit, right? Now, how do I check whether my machine does have JDK or not? Okay, so let's go to File Explorer. Okay, maybe let's go to C drive. Mostly all the softwares will present on the C drive, right? So I'll go to C drive and let's go to program files, and here just check whether you have a Java folder or not. Okay, if you don't have the Java folder, okay, let me just write down here. Okay, so there are a couple of possibilities here. Okay, and let's understand them one by one. So in case, okay, I'll just, okay, so let's go to program and program files, right? That's what we have to go here first, right? And then just check if you have Java folder here. Okay, so this is one possibility. So you may have a Java folder, you may not have a Java folder. If Java folder is not there, it means your machine does not have any Java software on it. Okay, right? Now the second possibility is, let's click on this Java folder. In case if you have a Java folder, at times you will might see a Java folder having just JRE, Java Runtime Environment, whereas the JDK will be missing, right? So again, in that case, if the Java folder just contains JRE, then also you need to install JDK basically, right? Right, so if the Java folder is there and it has only JRE in it, okay, it means the JDK is missing, right? And you have to install JDK in that case, right? So we'll come to that point. What is the difference between JDK versus JRE versus JVM? We'll come to that point once we do the installation, right? So let's assume that my machine doesn't have JDK on it. Okay, so how do I install it? So in order to install JDK, it's a setup, right? So in order to do that, we need to have the JDK setup first, right? So I'll simply go to Google. I'm sorry, okay, and just search here download JDK, right? And just enter. So you'll get a very first link which is from Oracle. Okay, so just click on this because earlier Java was supported by Sun Microsystems, but now it is taken over by Oracle. Okay, so when you click on this link, you will come to this page, and if you can see here, it says Java SC downloads. SC stands for Standard Edition. Okay, so all you have to do is just click on this download, this Java platform JDK, right? So the current version of JDK is 9.0.1. Okay, the earlier version was 1.8, which is very famous, and now mostly that version you will see used in your offices or any other projects. Okay, 9.0 has recently come, maybe from last 5-6 months it is there in the market, right? So all you have to do is just say accept license agreement and just download the required setup. Now of course Java, the JDK setup which we can download, it's platform independent. Okay, whereas Java language is platform independent. Okay, so we'll come to that point why Java is platform independent, but just keep this in mind. So if you want to do a Java development on a Windows platform, you need to install JDK for Windows. Okay, if you want to do a Java development on maybe a Linux platform, you need of course the JDK setup for Linux platform. Okay, so it is platform dependent. The softwares which we need to do the Java development, they are platform dependent. Okay, so all you have to do is just download this particular Windows setup. Okay, so when you do that, since I will not click over here because I already have it on my machine, so I'll just show you. So when you download the setup, just a second. So once you download, you will see something like this. Okay, a file getting downloaded on your machine. This is of course a .exe. It's an executable file, right? So once you download that, as I said, the earlier version was 8. Once you download that, all you need to do is just double click on this particular executable. Okay, so once you double click on this, it will ask you for the permission, and then the installation will be done on your machine basically. It okay, so if you see, I'll just say no because I already have it. And okay, so I'm gonna also give you a document around JDK installation. So if you, I'll just go through that documentation because Java is already done on my machine. So we search for download JDK, right? And then if you scroll down, okay, as I said, you will come to this page. You have to click on this download JDK, okay, and then you'll come to this page. Okay, so if you see here, you need to click on this accept license agreement, and depending on your platform, okay, right, for earlier 8.0 series, okay, JDK, there were so many versions they were providing, but now in 9.0, the version which I just showed you, they were just having 5 different setups. Okay, so here you need to click on this .exe depending on your machine, whether it's Windows 64 or Windows 32-bit. How do you find out that? So on your My Computer, just say right click, properties. Okay, so here you will see whether your machine is a 64-bit operating machine or it's a 32-bit operating machine. Okay, so depending on that, you need to download a setup, right? So once you download, and of course, as I said, you have to save that file somewhere on your machine. Okay, so once it is downloaded, you will see a file like this, right? And all you have to do is just double click on this file. So you will come across a wizard, a typical wizard that just click on next, 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 okay, and then that is how the installation will be completed, right? So once the installation is completed, now guys you can go to your program files, and for people who were not having the Java folder, now the Java folder will be created, and under that you will see JDK and GRE folders being created as a result of the installation what we did just now. Okay, so once you see these two folders, it means Java is installed on your machine basically, right? So if I go here, so if you see here, this is how you'll see two folders getting created, right? Now, as you see here, okay, we are coming across a term called as JRE. Okay, now you know what is JDK. So JDK is a Java development kit. So if you want to program, okay, plus if you want to do Java programming, or let's say if you want to do a Java development plus execution, guys, okay, you need JDK basically, right? So in case you want to do a Java development plus execution, you need JDK on your machine, right? But at times, if you only want to execute Java programs, okay, if you only want to execute Java, you are not interested in Java development, then JRE is enough, okay, that is Java runtime environment, right? Whereas there's something called as JVM, which is a Java virtual machine basically. So the task of JVM is to take take input as your bytecode, that is dot class file, and execute it on your machine, okay, what we learned just before some time, right? So this is typically asked in an interview, that what is the difference between JDK versus JRE versus JVM. So just keep in mind, so JDK is used whenever you want to do the Java development plus execution. JRE is used only when you want to execute Java programs. Okay, for example, it is quite possible that on your machine you want to execute some Java applications, but you don't want to do the Java development. In that case, only JRE is enough. Okay, whereas JVM is a Java virtual machine. It's a process. It is used to execute your .class file or bytecode on your machine basically, right? Now, JDK is a superset of JRE and JVM. Now, what does it mean? Okay, let me show you this through a program. Sorry, image. Okay, so let's say this is my JDK. Let's say. Okay, so I'll just name this as, let's say, JDK. Right now, this JDK is a superset of, okay, of JRE and JVM basically. Okay, so when you download JDK, okay, it will automatically contains JRE and JVM basically, right? Understood? So JDK is a superset of JRE and JVM, and as I mentioned, so if you want to do Java development plus execution, we need JDK, right? If you just want to execute, then we need JRE, right? And JVM is a process. Keep that in mind. Okay, so this is a process, right? Understood? So when you download JDK, you will get the entire this kind of structure on machine. So on some machine, you might just see a JRE as well. Okay, like this JRE. Okay, fine. Okay, so let's move on. Now, if you go to this JDK, let's see what JDK contains inside. Okay, so as I said, JDK is a superset. So if you see, there's a folder called a JRE in it. So JDK becomes a superset of JRE and JVM, right? Now, if we if you remember the process which we discussed just few minutes ago, that we need to write down a Java program in with .java extension, and then this program gets converted into a something called as byte code, that it that is dot classified, right? And then it gets executed on your machine basically, right? So as I mentioned, the first level of conversion is done by something called as Java C, right? That is your Java compiler. And then the dot class file is executed on machine by something called as JVM, right? So Java C and JVM are, these are the two important components of JDK. Now where can I locate them? So if you go to your JDK and under the bin folder, you will notice here this is the component called as Java C, as in Java compiler, whereas this is a component known as JVM, Java, right? So very soon when we will write down the programs, you will realize how these components are useful in writing the programs. Okay, all right. I hope you have understood what the Java language is first of all. So let me quickly summarize what we have learned so far. So as I said, guys, okay, Java is, so languages are of two type, okay, interpreted and compiled. Okay, so in Java, so Java is a compiled language, right? So we write down Java code, also known as source code, that gets converted into bytecode by something called a Java compiler. Okay, and then this compiled code is executed on your machine by something known as JVM basically, right? So if you see in this process, we have come across two components, Java C and JVM. So who is going to provide us these two components? So JDK is a software which provides us these two components, okay, Java development kit. So we checked how whether my machine has a Java or not, okay, JDK or not. So we went into C program files and we checked whether the Java folder exists or not. If the Java folder exists, just check whether the Java has JDK in it. Okay, if it contains only GRE, it means your machine can only execute the programs. It cannot develop the Java programs. Okay, so for that matter, we download the JDK and then we executed the setup. Okay, and then the folder got created with the name called as JDK on my machine. Okay, so the latest version of JDK, guys, keep in mind, is 9.0. Okay, this is the latest, but mostly you would see people using 1.8 version. Okay, the earlier version of it. All right, guys, thanks for watching this video. So in the next video, we'll see how to write down a simple program on a command prompt basically. Okay, thanks, guys.